is all that job creation happens somewhere else. And all that reinvestment happens somewhere else. That is a real issue. So, I mean, when you ask me how do you create jobs, there's a series of things that need to be done. I mean, we took up the patent bill. Not a very exciting piece of legislation to most people. It actually is to me because I went to Franklin Pierce Law Center right here in New Hampshire and got my master's in intellectual property. So this bill came up, and it was actually an interesting few days. As I was reading through the bill, I had my Constitution in one hand, I had the bill in the other. I've got papers from actually different IP experts around the country and assessing whether this bill A was constitutional and B, whether it was going to address some of the challenges we had. Several challenges we have with the patent. Number one, it takes a long time to file a patent. But there were a lot of issues in that bill relative to first to file and other things that were concerning and important to me. I worked through them, I supported the legislation. We passed the Senate, passed the House, and the President signed it into law. That's just one component of something that needs to be done. But what it allows entrepreneurs, innovators, people who have ideas, to bring those ideas, to get the patent quicker and to bring it to market quicker. So that's just one, it's one of many things that have to be done legislatively to have that environment conducive again for that innovator, that risk taker, to actually take that risk. It does. The second thing I just want to say, and I think yeah, and I'll take one more. I just want to talk about energy. Anyone here think we have an energy policy in this country right now?
We don't have.
Think about that for a minute. We in this country use about 19 million barrels of oil per day. Anyone have any idea of what we actually produce?
No.
7 million. 19 to 7. So we are every day looking elsewhere for the remainder of that energy source, just that one energy source. Yet we cannot convince a few people in Washington to be self-sufficient. Now, I think we can do it in an environmentally conscious way. Most jobs in that industry are about 80 to 90,000 to start. You're talking about high-paying jobs, good jobs. You would have an asset that we could actually sell. Imagine if we used 19 million and we produced 20 or 21. Oh my gosh, the price would come down, we'd be selling. But those things are not happening. I believe that we should have almost an all of the above energy policy and a co-sponsored legislation to that effect, where you look at not just fossil fuels, but you look at alternatives. Allow us the flexibility here in New Hampshire to utilize the innovation we have and create a market if the consumer will utilize it. But that's not happening. So these things need to get addressed desperately. I mean, we're running out of time. We have $14.6 trillion deficit, and our GDP is what? 14.6 trillion. I would argue that we're 100%. Now, Washington calculates it a little bit differently because they exclude foreign debt. But even if you look at the measurement that way, we're at like 60% of debt to GDP. That you don't want to be there. So we've got a finite period of time, I think, to grasp this country again, get the right policies going, and let innovators innovate again. Someone
One
else?
more question from your person?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody would like to ask a question?
Go ahead.
This may seem like a softball question, but it's something that I'm hearing a lot more of. Do you believe that this country, that the federal government, has a problem bringing in revenue, a revenue issue?
No.
Okay.
I don't think we have a revenue. I think we have a spending issue.
I agree with you there. Why does it seem that
We know how to collect revenue. We know how, but we spend more than we take in. We've got a spending problem.
Why does it seem though that the conversation now is about increasing revenue?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting when the president had a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate. They didn't bring these proposals out then. but for some reason they're bringing them out now. I look at the model, I think that we should be as efficient as we possibly can with taxpayer money. So there are areas where we can reform spending, reduce spending, and eliminate unnecessary spending. You can go through foreign aid, you can go through waste, fraud, and abuse, whether it's in programs or even in entitlements. There is broad agreement that there is billions of dollars that we can save. That's just a percentage of where we need to get to be back in balance. You've got to preserve and protect the entitlements to put them on a trajectory that is affordable. And you have to have a growth model. You don't have to raise revenue by raising tax rates. You can raise revenue by having a growth model. I mean, if you think about it in this sense, the best way to actually generate revenue is to get 15 million people who are out of work back to work and paying taxes again. That is the best way. Not to mention, our expenses will go down as a result of it. And you know what? People will feel better about themselves. Now, I don't think any of us are against helping people when they're down and out. I think we are a neighborly society. I think we all are. And of course we're going to help people when they're in a tight bind. But the policies that have to be put in place are pro-growth policies. We're going to get those people back to work, where they're paying taxes. And then the key is not to spend it on new programs, but dedicate those revenues to paying down our debt. And and this is why I talked about budget reform earlier. Budget reform, I believe, is necessary in order for that to happen. Because I don't trust people in DC to do this on their own. It's why, one of the bills I co-sponsored was a bill called Cut, Cap, and Balance. It cut spending, it capped spending over the next 10 years, and it mandated a vote on a balanced budget amendment. I don't have a problem living with a balanced budget amendment. Some people don't like a balanced budget amendment. I've heard the President of the United States say, we don't need a balanced budget amendment. I disagree with him. You give me a 10-year history where the United States of America, in the last 100 years, has balanced its budget for 10 years, 10 consecutive years. What's that?
1920.
But that's it. I mean, that's it. Isn't that, and this is the other thing I ask people. If you had $1,000 to invest, and you looked at the balance sheet of the United States of America, would you invest in that operation? So to me, this is common sense. This shouldn't so much be Republican versus Democrat. It's about logic and common sense and good practices. That's what it should be about. And if we can get a little bit of that in DC, I think we'd be in better shape. But to answer your question, yeah, we don't have a revenue problem. $2.2 trillion in revenue. I think we do have a spending problem. And we have the solutions in front of us. We just need partners in the Senate and the White House to get those things passed. So, thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.